Spring is here. Flowers are in full bloom. Bright blue sunny skies. And love is in the air. Or is it? Springtime often evokes the feeling of romance. We've all heard the phrase a spring fling. But how do you turn that March-June relationship into a love that lasts all seasons? Good evening and welcome to our monthly special edition of the Daily Drum, a collaboration between 96.3 WHUR, HUR Voices, and WHUT-TV. I'm Bremante Bryant, sitting in for Harold Fisher. Tonight, our conversation is all about love and romance. How do you get it, nurture it, and keep it? We will not be taking any phone calls, but we invite you to join the conversation online using the hashtag SpringFling. Tonight's discussion is being streamed live on WHUR.com, Facebook, and YouTube. Now, we have several guests who will be joining us throughout the show. Some have found love. Others are still trying to get it right. And of course, the experts will chime in to guide us all on the right path to love and happiness. Starting us off is Dr. Alduan Tart, a psychologist who helps couples to strengthen their relationships. Dr. Tart is also a published author. And Nika Watkins, a single mom in her 40s. She wants to have a long-term relationship, but she doesn't quite know why that hasn't happened for her just yet. Now, Nika's story is not unique. Statistics show that over 50% and as high as 70% of some reports say that black women are single. Dr. Tart. These statistics are not new, but they can still be jarring and even alarming. The late Kevin Samuel, a YouTube influencer, would say that women 35 and over are leftovers. Dr. Tart, what say you about this situation in terms of love and spring flings?
I mean, you said the wrong name to me. I mean, Kevin Samuels is absolutely offensive and an abomination when it comes to even being declared as a relationship expert. I'm just going to be honest. But may he rest in peace. And the reason I say that is that it sends this message that there are not men out there who are single who are looking for committed marriage and to settle down. According to the U.S. Census data, by the time that women turn 55, all right, the majority are married. And for men, as men get older, they look to marry and settle down. Men do not want to be single and die alone. They want connection, they want companionship, and there are a number of single men out there who are unheard, who are looking for a committed relationship and to settle down. So to call a woman who is 35 years old anything other than a queen and a potential wife to a brother that has his stuff together, who's looking for a partner, who's looking to build with someone, is an absolute insult. And I'm glad that that dialogue has ended, and I hope that it ends.
So is it a...
Go ahead.
Go right ahead.
No,
you finish your thought.
So when we start talking about men, and you're a man, when we're looking for marriage, it's hard. It's hard to find a wife. I know women don't believe that, but men don't know where to go to look, right? But so when a man is social and a woman is social, things haven't changed. They begin to date, they court one another, and then they're able to get married if they can see eye to eye. If we believe this myth that all the brothers are not interested in marriage, unable to get married, have no interest, or they're already married, then of course that's going to allow our sisters to start to feel desperate and upset because they deserve to be married. But I can tell you this right now, even though I'm a married man, having a lot of male friends who are single, they're looking for the right one, and they just don't know where to go to meet a wife. Eye candy, yes, but a wife, that's a whole other level.
Okay, Nika, so now we're going to jump to you. Now, folks out there, many might say, why is she still single? Is it by happenstance or is it by choice? How would you answer that?
In honesty, full transparency, I believe it's a combination of both. Like being a single parent, like your focus is your child. And when you're dating, you're you're definitely dating to see if this person could be a match for you as well as your child. And I have a family that's like really protective of girls for specific reasons. And so because of that, it made it hard for me, like, thinking, will this person match with my child? Like, what are their parenting styles? What are they rearing? Like, will they love my child the way I love my child? So that was a big thing for me. And another thing is, like, I'm kind of like a go with the flow girl, which I'm learning is not a good thing, because it seems as if I don't have a standard, which I do. I'm just kind of like, oh, we're together, we're together. Oh, we're not, we're not. And in situations, people have felt as if I wasn't really serious or wasn't into the relationship because of that mindset.
Now, that's very interesting, because I would say, as a guy, right, and maybe this is particular, and Dr. Tart can sort of address this, when you were saying that you're kind of a go with the flow gal, I would think most guys, that's the thing they would like, that a young lady that will go with the flow, wouldn't put too much stress on them, is easygoing. If a guy says, I want to go to McDonald's today instead of Ruth Chris, you will go with the flow. But you said you found that actually worked against you with the guys that you were dating?
Yes, it works against me because they don't feel as if I'm committed or that I have an end goal, which I do. I like to be married, but it's not like I'm drumming it in their head. I want to be married. I want to be together. So over time, it's like they're looking for, I guess, more depth. But because I'm just so like go with the flowish, they don't get that.
Dr. Tart, am I off here on my assessment? Again, because I've been married a long time. I got 25 years in, plus 8, that gives me 33. But even as a married man, if my wife says, hey, I'm ready to go with the flow, you can watch football all day if you want. If you want to have pizza, we can do that. That's a great thing for me. So tell me about that. I'm really intrigued with this go with the flow thing. What's your sense of that with guys? Am I misreading that, or am I sort of,
No, you're
off?
great. You're great with what you do and setting up questions, Doc. That's what it is. And then being a married man, yeah, we like the to not have the honeydew list, but we also like to chase. We also like intrigue. And I get what Nico is saying is that you think like, okay, if I can be cool and chill, that's what guys would like. But actually, we like a challenge, right? Right now, as we listen to NBA, they're going after a title. They don't want it to be easy. They want it to be hard, right? So with guys is that we are attracted to a woman who has high standards for herself. So if you have clarity and you say, hey, look, you know what? I'm looking to get married in the next couple of years. I'm not forcing it, but if I'm dating towards marriage, I am marriage material. I would like to have a nuclear family here. If that's what you want, let's get to know one another, because that's what I'm about. When a woman is defined and she has standards, but she's also flexible and amenable, right? So she can go to Ruth Chris and she can also go to Applebee's in the course of dating. All right, wonderful. But we definitely want to make sure that you understand that men do love a confident woman. The most attractive woman in the room is the woman who walks with the most confidence. And same thing with men. Women are, so you don't have to dumb it down. You don't have to settle. You just have to be confident and know what you want, and know that there are men who also want what you want. They just want to find the connection and make sure that you appreciate and respect them as well.
Now, Dr. Tart, you talked about walking in with confidence, and I want to get Nika's response to this in a second. But what about that person walks in with confidence, right? Dressed well, smelling good, looking good. They come in, you see their best self those first 90 days of a spring fling romance, then that real person may show up. So how do you keep sort of that representation that we see the first 90 days? How do we make sure that person always shows up, or does the other person have to be wary of, oh my goodness, am I going to see something else now that changes, and this person may change other than what I've seen here these first 3 months?
Listen, a consistent man was consistent before you met him. He was consistent in his business. He was consistent in his prayer life. He was consistent in keeping his body together. He was consistent in being able to communicate in the disagreement. He was consistent about going to counseling. before he met you, if there are any issues or any losses or any relationship traumas that he needs to deal with. He was already consistent. So when you're talking about dating, at 90 days is only going to make you more convinced that this man is someone that who you need to date. I think where we get in trouble is where you see noticeable red flags, but you ignore them. And I think that men and women, but since we're talking about women here, should approach dating men like the bank. The banks have a credit rating. They look at, before they loan you money, they look at your past. How have you treated your relationship with money in the past? Now, you can change while dating me. You can increase your score. And if that's the case, I'm going to give you merit and loan you more money at a lower interest rate. But if you failed at every relationship and you have red flags the first 30, 60, 90 days, I'm not going to extend any credit. I'm not going to extend my heart to you. I'm going to KIM, keep it moving, because there's another brother who's mad that you're dating a buster like that when all he is consistent. So I say keep dating. That man is going to be consistent the way he has his whole life.
Nika, would you be described as too picky? Because oftentimes women who are still single, and we mentioned that you are in your 40s, some might see that as sort of, is Nika, does she not have a relationship or a husband because she's a little too picky and being choosy? Is that a valid criticism? And do you believe it is reflective of you and your approach in your relationships?
If you can see my face, a little bit, especially when my daughter is 20 now, so she's away in college, so it's definitely different dating now that she's out of the house. When she was in the house, definitely, because this is someone that, would ideally help you raise your child. So yeah, definitely picky before. Now, not as picky, because that aspect is not an aspect that I have. It's like I want them to get along with my child, but they don't have to raise her, so that responsibility is not on the table anymore. So I can definitely say at one point I was super picky. Yeah.
So Nika, to open the pool, right, of available partners, number one, do you have a preference by race, and have you only dated one race?
I do have a preference, but no, I have not only dated one race.
So you are open to dating outside of your race?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so, Dr. Tart, with that, should more men and women be open to that? And do you see more of that now in 2022? I mean, we definitely see it in advertisements on television. You see mixed race couples all throughout. When I was growing up, and many of us, if you saw that, it was unbelievable, and you rarely did see it on television. So would you recommend that
No.
people be more open to that?
No. If she likes brothers, we with all that action, right? Black men need to know that they are wanted. And you're talking to a black man married to a black woman named Mecca, all right, from Inglewood, California, by way of South Central, all right. So I am pro having love for the black man, of being a black man. Now, if you find love in any flavor, go for it. Because at the end of the day, it's about that relationship and the love that you have for one another. But no, I am not going to recommend that we date outside the race, just because if you have a connection with someone, go for it. But there are a number of single men out there who will tell you that they cannot find a wife. They are looking to settle down. And this is what's not being represented in the media, as you know, is that you think that they're dead, they're all married, they're players, they're gangsters, they're not interested. No, men do want to settle down. And so I think it's actually good to have standards, right? Because we're telling Nika, all right, don't have standards, but then open up the dating pool. No, date whoever she likes. But the recommendation I'd have, Nika, and for every woman out there, is be social. Be social, right? So like they're not men saying no to you. There's a majority of men saying, I don't know you. And if I did know you, right, then I would court you, I would date you, I would flirt with you, and then we'd see where it goes. So my number one advice to women out there, sisters out there looking for brothers, all right, is to be more visible, be more social, go to where we are, go to kickboxing class, go to CrossFit, go to business meetings, right? Go to ministry, all right? Because typically there are a lot of men. I'm just saying, wherever your flavor is, just happen to position yourselves naturally in that environment. If you're a businesswoman about business, why can't you go to the Chamber of Commerce? Why can't you go to the Black MBA conference? Why can't you go to the National Urban League conference? Position yourself around men, and then you'll see that there are a number of men who are looking for you, but they will not knock on your door. But they will certainly ask you your name if they're able to see you out online and in person.
So, Nika, have you been involved in those kinds of things? And also, I do think social media sort of plays a role now in 2020. And do you use social media to try to help meet that special someone?
Yes. So I have my own business, and because of that, I've been to some of the events that he's mentioned. In fact, I work in entertainment PR, so some of those events I may have even done PR for. So it's kind of funny. I have used social media. I've tried like dating apps, but it doesn't work for me. I'm not really good with it because they want you to kind of be on and continue to communicate, and I suck at that. I'm working on it. But I will say this. I did meet someone, like Facebook has a dating app. A lot of people don't know this. I did meet someone on a Facebook dating app. We went out on a date. It was actually a great date, like far better than I thought it would be. And we're going to go out again. But this guy is someone who's not in my typical dating pool. Like I have like a dating pool where I feel like it's like the same guy recycled over and over and over again. Like I've dated him before, and he's different from the guys that I've dated. So I'm
what is that pool when you say in my dating pool? Just so we know, what does that look like?
Yeah. So because I work in the entertainment industry, it's normally people who are in the entertainment industry. And it sucks because it's like we know each other, or we know someone who knows someone who knows someone. So it's kind of like the same thing, like every time, in my opinion. And so with this person being someone who's not in that circle, it was refreshing, actually. It was pretty cool that they didn't know any of the same people that I knew or knew anything about the industry that I worked in. It was just like a fresh start, if you will.
So, Dr. Tart, when we talk about spring fling, right, and say Nika is looking for one of those or Guy is looking for a spring fling, how do you have a definition for that? I mean, we kind of sort of set it up in the intro, but as the doctor in the
Nika's
house.
not looking like for a fling. She's not looking for, she says she wants to get married. She has a daughter who's off. She has time. She has opportunity. She's obviously well connected. She wants someone who is.
So it sounds
ready.
like you're calling that a negative thing. So is that a negative thing, Dr. Tart?
I mean, if you're in summer camp, you want to have a fling, and you're in college, and you say, look, we're gonna go our separate ways. Let's have fun. Let's not define the relationship. Let's be open and honest about it. Cool. But if we're talking about marriage, no one wants to have a fling, right? And so, to Nika, I like the fact that she opened up the dating pool. And I'm representing for men out there. Like, if you start talking about Black technologies of color, that's an organization. You start talking about African-American engineers, those are mostly men. If you start talking about accountants, these are mostly men, right? And so if you start diversifying and you start going to where the men are, and I can tell you this, married women who've been divorced and then remarried, they know this because they've been with their husband so long. They know where to go. They know to go to the cigar bar, right? To find a man who's suited and booted and has some taste, and has some class and some substance about themselves, or in theory, right? She knows where to position herself. And if she doesn't, she has a girlfriend that will tell you where to go to find eligible men. Now, it depends on the city that you're in, and I recommend, we talk about outside, open up your mind. I'm open to you relocating to where there are more men who you might be attracted to if being married is above your career or you can work from anywhere. So I like the fact that Nika opened it up. I like the fact she is anti-fling. It sounds like she's pro-fun. Let's get to know each other organically, but let's also be open and honest about what we're dating towards so that we're on the same page and there's no confusion and we can date with purpose.
And so that we
Nika,
can
Italy, like you were talking about before with your wife, my brother, that's what we want. is to be on vacation and have someone to grow old with.
Yeah, well, I
That
mean,
that's the
that could be
ticket. Yeah.
yeah, that could be a whole nother show, football season, and I mean, I'm look, 25 years in, I'm still I'm still working that out. I got to give up a couple Sundays, and I don't always do that. But Nika, so one, would you be willing to move uh, for the right person? That's number one, and I'll follow up after that. Would you be willing to move for the right guy?
Yeah.
Oh, that,
So
Oh,
that
you
didn't
listen
sound
up
real
to
strong,
that.
Dr. Tart.
funny that you asked that. So there was a person that I was seeing, and I mean perfect, like checks all the boxes for me. But that person lives in a city that I once lived in, and I hate that city. Like I hate it with a passion. And so for me, it's like, I don't think I can do this. And he has kids, younger kids. Whereas like I don't want to have you move somewhere and pull you away from your children either. So it's like, ugh. But then there's days where it's like maybe I could try, but that city is like, ugh,
But you've got to know
ugh.
what you want, right? And all of that is
Yeah.
part of what you want, whether or not you want to move and how much you will be sort of changing and switching up your life. Nika, what about your girlfriends? Are the majority of them married or single? And what kind of conversations do you all have about dating and romance and trying to find that right person?
So funny, haha. The majority of my friends are married. I had like this girlfriend pack when I lived in Atlanta, and it was like 10 of us, and like let's just say 7 out of the 10 are now married. And people always say that the whole there's not men in Atlanta. They're in Atlanta, and they got married in Atlanta, like met their husbands in Atlanta. So yeah, that stigma is gone. The type of conversations that we have, so my married friends like to talk to me because I'm still single. So I'm still kind of having fun and doing things that they can't do anymore. But it's also advice on, how they got there, how they, decided that that person was the person for them. And then I even give advice because sometimes there's situations that happen and, they're like, hey, he did this or I did this. What should I do? And because I'm kind of still out here, like I have like some tricks of the trade that they don't have or they're not thinking of. Like I kind of think outside the box a little bit for them. So I feel like my time is coming, definitely. I might be the last on the 10, but I'm coming. Like we'll be doing couple trips like the other ones are doing right now.
And we'll have you back on the new show, right? They have found love, and what's that love
Yeah.
like? But Dr. Tart, how do you know when you have it, when you found it, when it's not a fling, when it's just not a kind of one-off romance, but you have that thing called love? How do you know that?
You tell me what you think, but the majority of men whom I interview in this very office, when it comes to premarital counseling and marital counseling, I ask, how long did it take for you to know that she was the one? It's almost immediate, or very short time. It did not take long. They just had a feeling. I know we don't like to hear about God and leave it up to that, but they were like, I just knew. All right. I just knew that she was the one by the way she carried herself, and they know what they were looking for. There's a myth that men are out here just having a wonderful time when it comes to looking for marriage. Men who are looking for marriage are upset that they've dated a lot of women, but they can't find the one. So it is something that most men know almost immediately. You don't have to guess. Like a lot of men give advice, like if you're having to guess if he's into you, he's not into you. Men make it abundantly clear that they're looking for you. And I also agree with Nika that her season is coming next. And I'm glad she put some respect on Atlanta's name. I'm in Atlanta, right? And there are a lot of men out here who are looking to settle down because they want the suburban life. They want what you see on Instagram. They want the Mother's Day with the nuclear family. They want the soccer field. They want the football field. They want the couple's TikTok video. Well, maybe not TikTok videos. I had young kids, right? But they want to do all those things together, and they simply just can't find Nika. So it's about being social enough, and I'm going to say this, having enough options in men so that you don't put men into one box. I tell women, if you're not having dates, something is wrong. The only issue you should be having at this point is fit, chemistry, the right fit. But if you're not dating, you're simply not social enough, because there's certainly enough men out there who are looking for you. Now, it's not one to one. I'm not going to tell you that myth, But every day on Facebook and Instagram, someone's getting married. And what I tell my clients who are looking for dating advice is you only need one man to be interested in you. You don't need 10. I don't care about what the ratio is. Is there one man who's interested in you who can't meet you? Make sure that you're social in the way you're social, and that man will introduce himself to you. And hopefully y'all can have a healthy, thriving marriage.
Nika, are you checking off those boxes that Dr. Tart just said that you should be having dates, and if you're not having dates, you're doing something wrong? Do you fall in that category? And if you do, how does that feel to hear someone who's a doctor to say, if you're not having dates, something's wrong? Would you agree with that, or what's your assessment of that when you hear that from an expert?
I actually totally agree. Like he said a little while ago that he's not going to just knock on your door and show up. Like I'm a firm believer of that. If I'm not going on dates, it's not because I don't have the option to go on dates. It's because I don't want to, or I'm choosing not to go on dates. But yeah, like my DMs pop, my phone pop. Like all it takes is for me, I post one cute picture, and like people who I haven't heard from in months are like, "Hey, happy Wednesday!" Like, please get out of my face. Like, go that way. So yeah, I totally agree, and I agree. You should get out. You should network. There, like outside is open right now. There are so many events going on. Like you could miss, your opportunity to meet someone because people are out. So you do need to get out and socialize. That I agree. Totally.
All right, before we go to break, Dr. Tart, any resources for those who are trying to find that special someone or keep that romance in their relationship? What would you suggest?
Three resources. One, a lot of people have told me that they have found someone on Facebook dating. I don't have any stock in them. All right, so Facebook dating is a great option. Two, ask for a hookup. Women over 35 typically tend to marry. Since you want a real statistic about women over 35, someone who's already in their phone or connected to someone in their phone. So don't be afraid to say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. If you know someone and you know what I like, please introduce a sister to a brother, but vouch for them. And if you're looking for dating advice from a husband and wife team, my wife and I do it. It's called Ring Formula. Check it out at ringformula.com. Or if you're already married and you're looking for a luxury, exclusive marriage retreat, check out A Weekend for Love, where we build up couples and we give them everything they need to have a phenomenal weekend and build their marriage up. That's called aweekendforlove.com.
And Nika, and you've got about 30 seconds. Any final thoughts you'd like to share?
I'm single, fellas. Slide in DMs. I will reply. Just kidding. No, seriously.
All right, fellas, you heard it.
It ain't gonna take long. Brothers gonna watch the video and hit her up.
And she's got the shout outs. Dr. Alderwin Tart, Nika Watkins, thank you both so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. God bless, my brother.
Have a good
All right,
one.
we're going to take a quick station break and say goodbye to our 96.3 WHUR audience. But this conversation continues online and on SiriusXM channel 141 WHUR Voices, 96.3 HD2, and on 98.3 FM. Spring Romance, how to make it last through all the seasons, will continue in a few seconds. Thanks for staying with us. We continue with Spring Romance lasting through all the seasons. I'm Bremante Bryant in for Harold Fisher. A reminder, no phone calls tonight. Joining us now is Candace C. Anderson, a licensed psychotherapist, and Lamar and Huda Brown. They've been married less than a year, but they dated for 9 years before they got married. And yes, they are committed to each other and were committed that entire time. So important to know that. So we're going to begin with Candace Anderson, also called C. Here's what I want to know. Do women and men have different expectations of love and romance?
I think that they do. And it's been shown over the years, in this field especially, that we tend to have very different orientations to what love and romance are. If we look at how we even orientate our children to love and romance and being coupled, we often see that we look at girls and we give them the princess persona, that someone's going to come and wipe you off, sweep you off your feet, but we're not giving that same thing to men. So it's like they're different in that way, but at the core, there are some similarities.
All right, so now Lamar and Huda, 9 years before you got married, and then you tied the knot. So you all are outliers. You hung in there for 9 years, and then you decided to get married. So we really need to know more of a backstory here. I know you are newlyweds. And look, I've got an affinity for you because I dated my wife for 8 years before I got married. So you got me by 1. But the show's not about me. So tell me, did you all agree to wait 9 years? Was this a plan ahead of time, or did it just kind of work out that way? I'll let you all decide. You pinch each other. Who wants to start first?
Oh, I guess
I'll let you start.
because she wants me to start. I did, for me, it wasn't a plan. It definitely wasn't a plan. There's nothing we talked about. It just kind of happened that way. We actually never put any time restraints or restrictions or timelines on any part of our relationship. I would say, for me, the time went by fast. I guess that's a very good thing. I didn't even realize that it had been so long until we started looking at the actual dates. So no, it was not a plan. It just happened. We were enjoying each other. And then we looked up one day and time it flew by, and then we got engaged, and then COVID happened. That actually pushed the marriage piece back a while. And I guess that's how it added up to 10 years so fast. I don't know if you want to add to that.
I can tell you, Huda, I remember when I was just out of college, right? And a friend of a friend, she was dating this guy for like 5 years, and they hadn't gotten married yet. And I remember looking at her going,
What are you doing?
he's been dating, he's coming from a guy. I'm like, he's been dating you for 5 years and he hadn't proposed. And then, of course, as I said, fast forward to my life, I would be in that same boat. So the question I have for you, though, even if you and Lamar had kind of were making your way and you said, we'll see what happens. On the outside, were girlfriends and other folks looking at you like, Huda, this dude, good guy, nice looking guy, this isn't real. I mean, what's going on?
And so the interesting thing about our relationship is when I met Lamar, I wasn't looking for anything. And I definitely wasn't thinking about marriage. I planned out all the rest of the aspects of my life, but marriage was not a priority for me. So when we started dating, I definitely, after the first year, for some people, depending on how much they loved him, which everyone falls in love with Lamar, I got answers or questions from some of the elders like, hey, baby, what you doing? It's 2 years now. He's been around. He's been to Thanksgiving. What's going on? And I think a lot of people internalize some of those pressures that you get, because on the guy side, he wasn't getting that, except for some of the great aunties. Yeah. But no one was asking him those same questions. They weren't asking, oh, who this lovely girl? When are you going to pop the question? They were kind of just like, it was all on my side. And I really feel like for a lot of people, that's a pressure that they don't necessarily know how to deal with. And unfortunately, I think for some people, it ends up messing up the relationship, because now you have all this added pressure instead of you just enjoying what is happening in your own life.
That's so important. I think it's such a great point. So see, how then do couples handle that? And I would think that there's much more pressure on a woman with that issue, being in a relationship for a certain amount of years, not being married, versus a guy, because we make the assumption probably that a guy like, hey, it's good, she ain't pressuring me to get married, and buddy say, hey man, you in a good spot. She's not making you get married. So how do couples handle that, and especially women, that kind of pressure?
Well, I think in a couple of different ways. So the first way is being absolutely clear and honest about what you want, and being able to convey that very clearly to your partner. Because guess what? There are some people who get into a relationship with the intention of marrying and marrying very soon or within a particular time frame. But then there are people that say, I just kind of want to see where this goes. There's no pressure. I want to go with the flow. Other people are like, I've got my grandmother and my mother, they want grandbabies. My biological clock is ticking, right? All of my other friends are married. I'm the one that's left over, right? So it really depends on the individual, but whatever the individual wants, they need to be very honest and clear about that from the get-go. So there's no misinterpretation about, oh, well, I thought you wanted to get married within 2 years. Well, I didn't say that. Why did you think that? Well, you told me I was your boo, right? So being honest from the get-go is the most important.
So that sounds like one of the mistakes we can make, right? That if you're not honest. And see, I want to follow up with you on this. Do you address keeping the romance differently if you are married versus not married in a relationship? So you got a relationship, and now we're talking about, I'm shifting a little bit now, sort of keeping that romance, keeping what Lamar and Huda have. Is there a different approach if you're married versus not being married?
In my opinion, I don't think so. I think that if this person that you love and care about inspires romantic gestures and thoughts and feelings from you, and you want to express that and you feel safe enough to express those things, go ahead and express it. If you're in a marriage, my grandmother used to say, whatever it took to get your baby hooked, right? You gotta keep it going. But even if you're not in a committed relationship and there are things that you want to do to express how you feel about a person, then be okay with doing that. That's absolutely appropriate.
And Huda, I hear you saying, And so, again, being a married man, I want to say that's one of those where you go, yeah, I got to make sure I do the things that he likes. But part of me thinking that is like, yeah, did you hear that, Lamar? Make sure you keep doing those things that you did. Is that true, or am I hearing it wrong?
I know. I was agreeing with her because I really feel like in relationships, and what was unique and different about when I met Lamar, he made me want to do all the things that I had fantasized about doing or only seen in movies. And I think it's important to really celebrate and understand the love that you have, because obviously everyone's relationship is different and unique, but really do those things that makes your partner feel appreciated, because you appreciate the fact you have someone to share your life with or share the year with, or whatever your situation is. So really, you don't get that time back. So why not enjoy that time and make sure that the person that's with you enjoys it as well?
Lamar, earlier in the show, Dr. Alderman Tart had said, and sort of paraphrasing, this is a myth that these men out here don't want to be married. And I would probably ascribe that to very specifically to probably being, about African-American men. I think there's a perception that, they don't want to be married, and especially here in the DMV, I think the numbers are 10-1 African-American men to women, so it makes it much harder for women to find that mate. So do you see yourself sort of as an outlier, or what's been your experience with your guy friends? Would it be accurate in what Dr. Tart is saying, that there are men out here who want to be married? Or is your experience has been with your buddies, hey man, the ones who are single, I'm good. What how would you describe it?
I would say it'd be a mixture of both. I know most of my friends are married. I was probably one of the last few to get married. And the ones that aren't currently have been married previously. But there are a couple that say, hey, no, it's just not for me. They've been in a few bad relationships and they just enjoy dating. But the vast majority of my friends, I would say they are married and are married happily right now. So I think some of that has something to do with age. When you're younger, being in the DMV, marriage is probably the last thing on your mind. I'll admit it was the last thing on mine. But as you get older and you meet someone special, you change your mind. So I think that has a lot to do with it.
Now, you said being single and a man in the DMV. So would you agree that you recognize that imbalance in numbers, that's sort of 10-1, and it might even be higher than 10-1?
I don't know what that ratio is, but I would agree. As I said, in my 20s and early 30s, I had no intentions of getting married. I was just fun dating and meeting new people. So I'm pretty certain it has something to do with it too.
See, Dr. Tart had said earlier he was not down with this spring fling thing. He didn't really, care for it. And I understood where he was coming from. What's your sense of it? Can that be a good thing, or is a spring fling, the connotation is negative? What's your assessment of it?
Well, a fling, right? The connotation with that is that it's something that happens very quickly. There's not a lot of emotion or intention for future involvement within the fling. I don't think that either of those things is negative or positive. But again, I think that what it boils down to is the individual don't go into an interaction knowing that you want to fling, but you're treating it as if it's going to be something long term, or the opposite of that. You know that you want something long term, but you're okay with being connected with someone under the context of it being a fling. So again, being honest with yourself and honest with the other person so that you can be in alignment with what it is that you really say that you want, what you truly, truly desire. So I don't think it's negative or positive. It just kind of is. But as long as you know what it is that you want, the connotation doesn't really count.
Lamar and Huda, part of the conversation that we've been having tonight is also sort of being in a space, right? If you're trying to meet that special someone, that you have to put yourself in that space, whatever it is, whether it's social media or whether physically going out to events, clubs, organizations, associations, being there to sort of meet that right person. You two met in a winery. Huda, you're a chef. Lamar, you used to own a winery, and I'm assuming you met in the winery that you owned, and if not, no, you didn't, but you met at a winery. I know you're in IT now. Tell us about that. How did it happen? What was it like? Because I know folks are out there and they're like, oh, now that sounds like romance. Met at a winery? Was it romantic? Tell us about it.
So go ahead.
Oh, so I get.
Yes, I'm going to let you tell the story.
So it didn't happen at my winery per se. I remember early in the discussion, he mentioned that you meet someone that over 35, you meet someone that's in your phone or someone connected to your phone. Right. That's kind of how it happened. So a mutual friend of ours had been to my winery several times, and we got invited to an event. And she says, hey, I got somebody I want you to meet. And that person was her. It was because, hey, you're a chef, he's in wine. You guys should know each other. And that was actually the first time we met.
First time.
we met, because that interaction actually didn't go anywhere. I saw her 2 years later at another event, and I says, hey, I remember you. This is how I remember you. And I brought up that introduction, and we hung out that night and never stopped hanging out. And that was, it was 2 years, almost 2 years later. So I guess that was kind of romantic, but it was more fun than anything else.
And I will say, in both occasions, neither one of us wanted to be at the events that we were at.
That's true.
Neither one of us had planned previously to be there. So they were very random, just saying yes to, say, an opportunity that came up. A friend of his invited him, a friend of mine invited me, and lo and behold, we had mutual friends. So if you're not getting off your couch, I understand if you're not putting yourself out there, you kind of can't meet anyone else. So even though your couch is comfy, you do have to get out into the world and be social.
Right.
And so in meeting that way, and it being 2 years later, meeting a second time, does that give you a sense of, this was meant to be? Do you sort of carry that in your relationship? Does that stay with you when things like that have, that happens and you were brought together 2 years later after meeting the first time?
Oh, I totally
Absolutely,
agree.
Yes. Because we realized once we actually started talking, we had been at the same events, the same rooms. We knew some of the same people. We had just never crossed paths until I guess it was meant to be, and we were supposed to.
Time, right?
So it was very interesting when you go back. You're like, the universe does work its magic, and it's kind of crazy.
So see, here we have this romance of Lamar and Huda, and it sounds like that they are doing most of all the right things. What are the mistakes we make in our expectations of lasting romance?
Several. The first thing that we don't take into account is that people change over time. And so sometimes the expectation becomes, I'm marrying this individual for who they are right now, not understanding and not being open to the evolution or the growth that they may experience while we're in the relationship. And so I've had people come in and they'll say, oh my gosh, he's different or she's different, she's changed. And I'm like, well, it's been 5 years. So I hope that they're not the same person that they were 5 years ago. So I think the expectation is things will always be just like they are right now. And so as life happens and starts to shift, there is some disappointment because expectations aren't necessarily being met. So being open and being flexible and available to change is one of the things that allows you to navigate through missed expectations.
Boy, that is so important about changing, right? You can't avoid it, and if you're probably not changing, you're not growing. And so,
Correct.
Lamar and Huda, you've got you haven't made it a year yet, right? You got married in November of 2021. So you guys are really newbies. So you haven't made it a year. but again, that 9 counts. In your 6 months, unless I'm doing the math wrong, do you feel that your relationship is different now that you're married, or is it just an extension of your relationship before you made it official?
So I think I can speak for both of us. Everyone keeps asking that question. They're like, have you adjusted? And it's like, we had a life together before we got married. We were always a couple. So I think it's literally just another chapter in a new book that we're writing together. And I think it is so important, especially what the doctor just said about understanding that changes will happen, but it's also important that you communicate with one another and you're honest with yourself and your partner about where you are as an individual and where you are as a couple. In my field, my life is crazy and things change all the time. So communication, especially when we first started dating, was super important and still is. And we check in with each other. And I know for a lot of my friends who call me with problems, there's not that check-in. So I think communicating and understanding that this is the love of your life and it's the person you've chosen to spend your life with. So therefore, they're your partner in everything you do. So treat them as such and be a good partner.
See, is there, and we're talking about romance, and as you mentioned, you said spring fling is not a bad thing. But in terms of trying to create romance, find romance, is there a one-size-fits-all kind of thing? I think I know the answer to the question, but I want you to answer it. So I'll leave it at that.
Now, I think you already know the answer to that question, which is it is not one size fits all. It has a lot to do with the person's individuality, what they like, what they don't like, what maybe even their love language is, what is their apology language, right? So you have to really understand and know your partner. Do they pay attention to the thing that you mentioned in passing a month ago and then it showed up at the door, right? Because they were listening to you. Are they doing the things that people are telling them are romantic, or are they in tune and attuned to what lights their partner up? So romance varies from person to person. So please don't go into a relationship doing what your last partner wants because you think that this partner is going to be receptive to it. It goes back to that communication, being open and honest, because some people think that romance is cheesy. So,
so Huda, let me ask you this, and I'm going to go. I'm going to go back.
It's going to come right to me.
Yeah, I'm going to go back sort of 10 years, and ask you before Lamar. Did you make mistakes in what you were looking for in romance? Did you have spring flings, or Was your experience similar to some of the things we're talking about? Or again, were you an outlier and you were just waiting for Lamar to walk into your life and anything else you weren't even worried about?
Listen, the universe definitely knew better than I, because I did not know Lamar existed, but I am very happy that he does. To answer your question, before Lamar, yes, I dated. I was in decent relationships where I think my expectations weren't necessarily matching what my partner was able to give. And I think through growth and really analyzing what went wrong or what decisions I could have made better, understanding when I was in those relationships that were convenient relationships versus relationships I should have been in, understanding where I was as a person and what I really wanted in life. You really have to reflect and be happy with who you are. When Lamar met me, I was very happy with who I was at the time, where I was in life. And I wasn't really looking for anything else because I was fulfilled within myself. So I think that's important, because 2 years prior, when I met him the first time, this relationship might not have worked.
Right.
And I think we've had lengthy conversations about that on both ends. We were both in different places in our lives as individuals. I think if you're going to have a healthy relationship, in my opinion, and this is my humble opinion, you both have to be happy with who you are as individuals, so you can be a better couple and a better team together.
And well, Lamar, first of all, I want to give you a chance to comment if you want. I was going to see, but I'm like, wait a minute, let me be fair to Lamar, because obviously, he was somebody before he met Huda.
He still is.
And still is somebody. Did you make any mistakes along the way, Lamar, before you got to Huda?
Oh yeah, and thank God I didn't meet her before. I definitely would have blew it. So it kind of like what she said. It just happens to be you meet the right person at the right time for you in life. Prior to her, I was definitely in relationships and dating and in situations that just didn't go right. And when I met her, I didn't have any expectations. Let's kind of see what happens. And that was the absolute best approach I could have taken.
All right, so we're getting down to our last few moments before we finish up. Candace C. Anderson, any sort of final thoughts, any suggestions, any comments, any critiques, and what should we be looking for out here if we're trying to get out of the spring fling and into solid romance?
The best thing that you can do for yourself and your future partner is to know who you are. You cannot relate to someone else if you cannot relate to who you are. If you don't know yourself, if you don't know your likes, dislikes, your triggers, your wounds, things in you that still need to be healed, no additional person added to your life is going to fix or make that better. So before you get into if it's a fling or if it's a marriage, I want you to practice knowing you better than anybody else knows you, so that when you get together and you are coupled, you're better able to show and present yourself and connect and relate to that other individual.
And Lamar and Huda, our newlyweds, 9 plus 6 months. What advice would you share for those who are either close to getting to the point where you are or are out there and just still looking?
I'm gonna let you go.
No, I'm gonna let you go.
I would say I would recommend just knowing you and knowing when you feel that you're ready to actually go and look for that forever person. Don't push it. It'll happen when it's supposed to happen. I'm a true believer that the universe will put you with who you're supposed to be with when you're supposed to be with them. You try to force a situation or relationship, it typically doesn't work. Just let things flow. That's my recommendation.
I mean, that was brilliant. I don't know if I have anything to add.
I should just close.
Know yourself, love yourself, and you'll be fine. You'll be okay. Be happy alone, so you can be happy together.
I should just let you all sign off on the show, but since I have to talk, Candace C. Anderson, psychotherapist, thank you so much for being with us. Lamar and Huda Brown, thank you for being with us. And I will say, I'm sure, at your dinner table, at the Brown dinner table. We've got wine, and we've got someone who, and a chef. So anytime, you want to do some invites,
Absolutely.
just let
now
you
on the
know
list.
that we
You're
are
on the
there.
list.
Thank you all so much. And we also want to thank Dr. Alduan Tart and Nika Watkins for being with us. Thank you all so much for sharing your stories and your expertise.
Thank you.
All right, finally, a famous author once wrote a line that so perfectly fits when you realize your love is more than a spring fling, but a romance that lasts through all seasons. That author said, "You know you're in love when you can't fall asleep because reality is finally better than your dreams." Seems like Dr. Seuss knew a little bit about love and romance. I'm Bremante Bryant. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.
This program was produced by WHUT and made possible by contributions from viewers like you. For more information on this program or any other program, please visit our website at WHUT.org.